All right, so welcome to another deep dive. You ready?
Today, we're going deep, really deep into the world of James Joyce.
Oh, yeah. Deep dive into Joyce.
You know him. You love him. Maybe pretend you've finished Ulysses. We're not here to judge.
The dream.
Exactly, the dream. But get this. We're about to add a whole new dimension to your James Joyce knowledge because we're going beyond the surface. We're exploring his, get ready for it, Celtic Unconscious. Right.
Like it.
And for this, we're turning to Richard Barlow's book.
Yes.
So we've got excerpts from his work. For those following along,
Yeah.
what's the big idea he's putting forward here?
So Barlow, what he does is he argues there's this hidden dimension, right, to Joyce's writing, that's kind of like subconscious influence from, get this, Scottish culture.
Okay.
That goes way, way beyond just what's on the surface. So it's not about like, oh, let's spot the bagpipes and Dubliners.
Right. It's about understanding how these deeper currents, right? Myths, philosophy, even how language itself works. These things are shaping his work in ways we might not even realize.
So it's like finding those hidden connections
Yes.
between things that seem totally, totally different. Like, you know how they say a butterfly flaps its wings in Brazil and it causes a hurricane like way over in the Atlantic?
Right.
It's those things where you're like, wait a minute, are you sure? Like, is that really how cause and effect works?
Yeah, and it really makes you question what you thought you knew.
Yeah.
Right. You come in with all your assumptions.
About Joyce, about Irish literature.
About Irish literature, exactly. And Barlow's like, hold my Guinness, because he's showing us Joyce drawing from this broader, this bigger wellspring
Okay.
that both Ireland and Scotland share, this Celtic connection.
Which, I mean, when you think about it,
Right,
makes
yeah.
total sense. You've got the intertwined histories, you've got the languages,
Yes.
mythology, it's all right there. But, okay, we're saying Celtic Unconscious.
Yeah.
We're saying it's there, but where do we actually see it? Where is it, like, in action?
So one of the most fascinating examples is in how Joyce uses, get this, Ossianic mythology.
Okay, Ossian. Now, that's where it gets a little tricky.
That's a little meta, right?
That's very meta, because Joyce, he knew this, but for everyone else, Ossian, those poems,
Yeah.
it's an 18th century creation.
Yeah.
But he uses it anyway. It's like,
Exactly.
is he messing with us? Is this like a big literary game?
Right, and this is classic Joyce, right? Because he uses these elements
Yeah.
from Ossian. So we're talking about themes of exile, we're talking about heroism,
Yeah,
his
exactly.
fall from grace.
Lost golden age kind of thing.
Exactly. But it's never, ever straightforward with him,
Right.
right? It's as if he's holding these big, almost romantic myths up
Yeah.
as this lens to examine like the very idea of creating myths and how we build national identity and what we choose to believe.
So is Barlow saying that Joyce is basically just pulling a fast one on everyone?
Well, not exactly.
Because he's using these myths that, I mean, come on, we know they're not real in the sense of like ancient.
Right, and Joyce definitely knew that.
Exactly.
But it's more about his intention.
Okay.
Right. Joyce, he was skeptical. He was skeptical of just blindly following nationalism, whether it was, Irish nationalism or Scottish nationalism.
It's interesting.
So by using Ossian, it's almost like he's questioning, he's critiquing, he's adding all these layers of irony.
So he's got the myth.
He's got the myth.
But then he's got the myth about the myth.
Right. He's deconstructing the myth.
He's saying, you want myths. Okay, I'll give you myths, but I'm going to make you think about why you want them.
Exactly. He's taking those existing narratives, but he's subverting them.
Okay, so we've got this Celtic unconscious. We've got this connection to Scotland that's deeper than we thought through these myths, through Ossian. Where else does Barlow take us? What other trails did he uncover?
All right, so buckle up, because we're about to throw some 18th century Scottish philosophers into the mix.
Wait, whoa, hold on. We went from ancient bards
Right.
to Enlightenment thinkers.
A little bit of time travel.
I mean, that's quite the leap. How did we get here?
So it might seem like a big jump, but just stick with me,
Okay.
because the Scottish Enlightenment, it was all about reason,
Yeah.
skepticism,
Question everything.
question everything.
Okay.
Sound familiar?
Knowing a little something about James Joyce, it's starting to look like we're looking in a mirror here.
Exactly. And that's precisely Barlow's point. He's arguing that this same questioning spirit that you see in the Scottish Enlightenment, right? This focus on how individuals see things and the limits of what we can truly know, that's woven into the very fabric of Joyce's work.
Okay, give me an example, because I'm starting to see the light here a little bit, but I need something concrete.
All right, so think about a character like Stephen Dedalus for a second.
Okay, yeah.
He's always wrestling with these big questions.
Right.
Faith identity, his place in the world.
Makes you wonder if he ever gets tired.
Right. But in those struggles, you can practically see those old Enlightenment debates coming to life.
Oh, interesting.
About, reason versus religion, the individual versus society. It's all there, playing out in his head.
So it's like those ideas, they're not just abstract concepts anymore. They're alive in the characters.
You're living and breathing in Joyce's prose, absolutely.
That's really cool. And it's not just what they're thinking about, is it? It's how he's using language itself to do it.
You're catching on so quickly.
Right.
Because Joyce, well, he couldn't resist a good linguistic puzzle if he tried.
Right. It's like his signature move.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But how does this, tie back to the whole Celtic unconscious thing? Because, he's not writing Ulysses in Scots Gaelic or anything.
Right. It's not like suddenly everyone's speaking in a different language.
Exactly. But think about it this way. Both Ireland and Scotland, they have this really complex relationship with language. It's their own traditions bumping up against, well, the dominance of English.
Right.
And Joyce, he picks up on that tension, that hybridity, and it seeps into his work.
So it's like he's mirroring that feeling of being caught between two different worlds.
Yeah.
Linguistically,
culturally, the whole thing.
Always navigating those influences. And, it makes me think about what you were saying earlier about those Scottish writers.
Right.
Grappling with those same questions, identity,
language, the whole thing.
It's like they're all part of this bigger conversation, this back and forth that's been going on for centuries.
Exactly. And Barlow, he actually has a term for it.
Oh, does he?
Yeah. He calls it, get ready for it, comparative Celtic modernism.
Catchy.
Right.
I like it.
But it's this idea that to truly understand Joyce, that you can't separate him from what else is happening.
Right.
You have to understand those cultural currents, the ones Ireland and Scotland are both swimming in.
It's like, when you find out that your favorite musician, they weren't just some solitary genius, like, locked away in a room.
Right.
They were part of a whole scene feeding off each other's energy.
Exactly. And those connections, they change how we understand the music, don't they?
Totally. So who are some of the big names in this Scottish Renaissance that Barlow's connecting with Joyce?
Oh, there are some good ones. So think Neil Gunn, think Lewis Grassic Gibbon. Those are just a couple.
Okay, those names are ringing a bell. But how does Joyce actually fit into all of this? Was he, directly taking ideas?
It's more nuanced than that.
Okay.
It's not so much about, one-to-one borrowing, but more about recognizing that they were all grappling with similar things.
Yeah.
Just in their own way. Some were very upfront about their political views.
Yeah. You can't always get away from that.
Right. But Joyce, he was more interested in those deeper complexities.
Okay.
And he explored them through language, through myth, and, that playful but profound subversion we talked about earlier.
Right. Like he always has a bit of a twinkle in his eye, even when he's getting serious.
Exactly. So it's less about finding a Scottish twin for Joyce.
Yeah.
And more about seeing those wider conversations he was a part of.
Like they're all adding their own little thread
to
this big, intricate tapestry of what it means to be Celtic.
Ooh, I like that, the tapestry.
Right, in the modern world.
In the modern world, exactly. Because it's not just Irish Joyce anymore, it's Celtic Joyce.
It's a bigger picture.
It's a bigger, more connected picture. And it's a Joyce who's drawing on all these different threads to create something truly unique.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it.
Right.
That we might have been missing this whole layer.
It's this whole other dimension.
To understanding him. It's like we were looking at a painting.
Okay, yeah.
But someone had put a spotlight on just one figure.
And now Barlow's work is kind of turning on all the lights.
Yes. And suddenly we see how much more is going on.
We see the richness, the connections.
Okay, so we've covered a lot here.
We have.
The whole Celtic unconscious, how Joyce uses myth, how he plays with language, even touched on the Scottish Renaissance. But I have to ask, and maybe it's the pragmatist in me, so what?
That's a fair question.
Why does all this matter? What's the big takeaway?
Well, for Barlow, it's about seeing that by understanding this Celtic unconscious, we get a much, much clearer picture.
Okay.
Not just of Joyce,
Yeah.
but of how we create cultural identity in general.
Interesting.
It makes us look deeper.
Beyond the surface?
Beyond the surface, because there are all these layers influencing who we are, whether we realize it or not.
So it's bigger than just one writer, bigger even than literature itself.
Way bigger. It makes us reconsider how we see ourselves in the world.
Right. And where we come from and what shaped us.
Exactly. It's recognizing those hidden threads, the stories, the languages.
Like those times when you realize something you always took for granted, it actually came from something much bigger.
Yes. And that realization can change everything, can it?
Totally. So with Joyce, we thought we knew him.
We thought we had them all figured out.
But then Barlow's work comes along and boom. It's like this whole other side of him is revealed.
And suddenly the picture is so much more vibrant, so much more complex.
This has been quite the journey. We've gone from the inner workings of James Joyce's mind to the heart of the Scottish Renaissance. And you know, it kind of makes you wonder what other unconscious forces are out there shaping our own worldviews. I mean, we're talking about Joyce, but what about us?
Yeah, like we've only scratched the surface.
Right. It's like we're looking at this massive tapestry,
Okay. Yeah.
but we've just got this tiny little spotlight.
Right.
And Barlow's work is like flipping on all the lights.
And suddenly you see the full picture.
Yeah, and you start to notice the details you never would seen before.
The connections, the patterns. It makes you want to take a closer look at your own life, doesn't it?
It really does. Where did all my assumptions come from? What hidden influences am I missing?
It's like that feeling you get when you travel somewhere completely new
Okay, yeah.
and you start to see your own culture through fresh eyes.
You realize how much you just assumed was normal.
Exactly. Things you didn't even realize were unique to your own little corner of the world.
And suddenly you're questioning everything.
Right. Which can be a little jarring, but also exhilarating because it forces you to confront those assumptions, to really see the complexity of the world.
And ourselves.
Exactly. It's like Barlow's giving us this gentle nudge saying, don't be afraid to question things. Look deeper. Be open to new possibilities.
Because you never know what you might find.
You might just discover a whole new way of seeing the world and yourself.
So to everyone listening out there, what hidden connections are waiting to be discovered in your own life? What assumptions might you need to re-examine?
What unexpected sources of inspiration are out there, just waiting for you to uncover them?
It's a question worth asking, and who knows where the answers might lead you.
Until next time, happy reading.
And happy deep diving.